Since the dawn of time, humankind has been drawn to the water, to that vast, shifting mirror that reflects both sky and soul. The ocean has always promised freedom, escape, a chance to drift beyond the limits of land and memory. In the early years of the 20th century, that promise took shape in shining steel. Grand liners rose from the docks of Southampton, New York, and Belfast, symbols of progress, wealth, and the new century's certainty that nature could be tamed. None embodied that belief more than the RMS Titanic, a floating palace built to outshine the world itself. She was called unsinkable, a word heavy with pride. Inside her gleamed chandeliers and sweeping staircases, gold leaf ceilings, orchestras playing waltzes beneath painted domes. To sail on her was to feel chosen, embraced by luxury, carried safely through eternity. But the sea is never fooled. It listens patiently, and when human arrogance grows too loud, it reminds us of its power in whispers of cold, salt, and steel. The Titanic sailed in April of 1912, and within days, she lay silent beneath the ice. More than 1,500 souls vanished into the Atlantic that night.
I believe that the heart does go on once more.
Since then, the ocean has never ceased calling. Even knowing its danger, we return again and again, chasing comfort, adventure, or something nameless that lies beyond the horizon. Today, the ocean liners of the past have become floating cities, great towers of light that drift across the world's oceans, each one carrying thousands of lives, each one promising ease, beauty, and escape. From the Caribbean to the Mediterranean, from Alaska's glaciers to the South Pacific, the cruise industry has grown into a multi-billion-dollar empire. There are ships now longer than skyscrapers laid on their sides, ships with theaters, shopping malls, water parks, and entire miniature towns stacked deck upon deck. They move with impossible grace, engines whispering beneath glass pools and grand ballrooms. Passengers dine beneath chandeliers, while the sea slides endlessly below. Few ever think about the black water, just beyond the railing. It's strange how quickly we forget that this paradise floats on something older than time, an element that takes without warning and gives no explanation. For every 1,000 who laugh and dance beneath the lights, one may step into shadow and never return. Some vanish in storms, some in silence, and some no one can explain. Each year, dozens disappear from cruise ships without a trace. No wreckage, no splash, no sound. Cameras turn away, witnesses sleep, and the sea writes its own ending. They are the names that barely make the news. A passenger missing between ports, a crew member gone before dawn. Families receive a call, a letter, an official phrase, lost at sea. Yet the truth is rarely clear. The ocean does not give evidence, only questions. On average, nearly 24 people vanish from cruise ships every year. Some are found, most are not. Sometimes there are witnesses who say they saw someone leaning over the rail. Sometimes there is footage, a shadow, a reflection, a blur, and sometimes there is nothing at all. Ships continue to sail, decks are cleaned, curtains drawn, and the music plays on. There is no pause for the missing, only the faintest whisper of unease that drifts through the corridors before it too is gone. The ocean does not hide them cruelly. It keeps them, as it has always kept its own. It knows their weight, their breath, their last heartbeat, and holds them in the quiet places where light cannot reach. And above, the passengers dance beneath moonlit skies, unaware that beneath their feet lie more stories than any port could ever tell. Cruises sell the dream of safety, of perfect sunsets, endless buffets, laughter, and calm blue seas. But those who work upon them know the truth, that the sea has rules no human contract can rewrite. There are security cameras, guards, and lifeboats polished for display. Yet in the vastness of the ocean, a single moment of silence is all it takes to erase a life completely. When something goes wrong, miles from shore, there are no neighbors to call, no footprints to follow. The ocean is both witness and accomplice. Even in calm waters, the unknown moves beneath. Crew whisper of strange sounds echoing from the hull at night, of shadows that cross the deck when the moon is hidden. They do not speak loudly of it, for sailors know the sea listens. And still we come, boarding these gleaming vessels with smiles and champagne, never imagining that paradise floats on something ancient and indifferent. The truth is simple. The sea does not choose who to keep. In March of 1998, a young woman named Amy Lynn Bradley boarded the Rhapsody of the Seas with her parents and brother. It was meant to be a family holiday, a bright week of sun, music, and Caribbean water, clear enough to see the bottom. Amy was 23, a strong swimmer, confident, independent. Photos from that trip show her laughing on deck, hair caught in the wind, the kind of joy only the open sea can give. The night before the ship docked in Curaçao, the Bradleys attended a deck party that lasted late. Around 5:30 in the morning, Amy's father saw her resting on the balcony of their cabin. The sea was calm, the air still warm. He went back to bed for half an hour, and when he woke again, she was gone. Her shoes, her ID, and her cigarette lighter were still on the table. The ship's crew searched. Divers combed the waters, but no trace of Amy was ever found. Witnesses later claimed to have seen her walking with a man near the ship's bar, standing on a pier in Curaçao, even years later, in distant hotels. Every sighting was uncertain, every promise of truth washed away by the next tide. The Bradleys never stopped searching. They still say Amy's voice feels close, like the hush of waves that rise without reason and fall without answer. The sea is vast enough to hide anything, and small enough to hold memory. Amy's case opened the world's eyes to something long ignored, that a cruise ship is not a floating city of safety, but an island adrift in lawless water. International waters answer to no single flag. Once a ship sails beyond the reach of its port, it becomes a nation of its own. Crimes vanish in paperwork, evidence fades in salt and sun, and time moves differently at sea. In Amy's disappearance, authorities disagreed about who should investigate. Days turned into weeks. Surveillance footage mysteriously vanished. When the ship finally docked, the ocean had already erased its secrets. Her story became a warning, not just about safety, but about trust. The ocean keeps silence better than any accomplice, and those who vanish upon it join a list without end. each name becomes another echo, another unanswered question carried beneath the waves. And yet, each year, the ships keep sailing, the champagne keeps flowing, and the music keeps playing, as if the sea itself were singing a lullaby to those who still listen. 6 years later, in the summer of 2004, another name was added to that endless list. Marion Carver, a 40-year-old woman from Massachusetts who boarded the Celebrity Mercury for a week-long cruise to Alaska. She traveled alone. She called her family before departure, cheerful, steady, promising she would return rested. But after the first day, her presence on the ship became a ghost. When Marion stopped appearing at dinner, staff quietly removed her belongings from the table. A cabin steward noticed her room untouched for days, the bed still made, the lights left low, but no alarm was raised. Only when the ship returned to Seattle did anyone report her missing. By then, her cabin had been cleaned, her records altered, her story nearly erased. Her father began his own investigation, uncovering what the sea had tried to hide. Documents missing, reports unsigned, witnesses contradictory. The truth dissolved, just as surely as ink in salt water. Marion had simply ceased to be, and the ship sailed on. In March of 2011, 24-year-old Rebecca Corium boarded the Disney Wonder to work as a youth activities coordinator. She was bright, kind, and endlessly energetic, the sort of person who could fill an empty corridor with laughter. Friends said she loved the ocean. She often stood on deck at night, gazing into the black water, listening to the hum of the engines as if it were a song. On the morning of March 22nd, security footage captured her walking through a staff corridor, speaking softly into a phone. She brushed her hair back, smiled faintly, and stepped out of view. It was the last time anyone saw her. When she failed to appear for her shift, a search began, first on board, then across hundreds of miles of Pacific water. Nothing was found. No clothing, no life vest, no trace at all. Disney's official statement said she had likely been washed overboard by a rogue wave, but the sea that day was calm, and no one could explain her quiet composure in those final moments. Her parents flew to Los Angeles, then to the ship's next port, desperate for answers. But the cabin had been cleaned, her belongings boxed, and her phone sealed away. The ocean had swallowed both their daughter and the truth. Each of these stories, Amy, Marion, Rebecca, seems different, and yet the rhythm is always the same. A moment of stillness, a missing witness, a silence that no one can quite fill. At sea, time bends. One moment stretches into forever, and in that gap, a life can be erased. The official investigations use words like accident, unknown, foul play, not suspected. But beneath those words lies the same quiet question. How can a person simply cease to exist in a world so closely watched? Families keep searching. They write letters, appear on television, pray to an empty horizon. Some still set a place at the table, as if the sea might return what it took. Every ship carries its share of these ghosts, unseen, unspoken. Crew whisper that certain cabins feel colder, that footsteps are heard in empty halls long after midnight. No one admits belief, yet no one sleeps easy either. Because once you've heard the sea call a name, you never forget the sound.
I see you, I feel.
From the outside, cruise ships shine with perfection, vast worlds of light and laughter. But below the music decks, the reality hums quieter, a machine of endless routine and unspoken exhaustion. Crew members work in narrow corridors that never see sunlight. Cameras watch every hallway, yet when something goes wrong, the footage fails or disappears. The ocean teaches invisibility to those who live upon it. Passengers drift through their holidays, unaware of the hidden tension that holds each voyage together, storms of fatigue, isolation, and memory that cannot be spoken aloud. For every cheerful farewell captured in photographs, there are moments no one records. The empty lounge chair, the unclaimed suitcase, the silence where laughter once lived. The sea accepts them all without judgment. To the waves, each life weighs the same, a ripple, a breath, a whisper that fades into the endless blue. And in that silence, the truth begins to gather, waiting for the next name the ocean will remember. To those who live their lives at sea, the ocean is not a landscape. It is a presence, a living force that listens, responds, and remembers. Sailors speak softly when the water lies flat and the sky is too still, for they say the sea grows jealous when it is ignored. Old captains still pour a drop of rum overboard before a voyage, a small gift to keep the waters calm. They will not whistle at night, nor speak the name of a storm until it passes. Some keep charms carved from whalebone or coral. Others carry coins from the first ship they ever served upon. They do not fear the sea itself. They fear what listens beneath it. The great ships may have changed, their sails replaced by steel and glass, yet the ancient rituals remain. Even now, officers pause before the bow, glancing once toward the horizon, as if acknowledging an old companion that cannot be seen. They know the truth that passengers forget. The sea is not conquered, only borrowed. There is a reason humankind keeps returning to the sea despite its danger. It calls to something restless within us, that urge to disappear, to leave behind the noise of land, and listen only to the breath of water and wind. But the horizon is a strange thing. It promises freedom, yet it never comes closer. Sail far enough and you realize the ocean was never meant to be reached, only respected. Psychologists have studied the effect of open water on the mind, how endless sameness and isolation can twist perception. On ships, time bends, reality softens, and small shadows begin to take on shape. A creak becomes a voice, a reflection becomes a face. Perhaps this is why the disappearances continue, not from malice, but from the quiet weight of the sea itself, pressing upon the soul, whispering that all things return to it eventually. The ocean does not hunt, it waits. Every legend of the ocean begins with loss. Ships vanish, islands sink, storms rise without warning. Yet for those who have sailed longest, these are not punishments. They are reminders. The sea takes, yes, but it also gives. It holds memory, washes away sorrow, and carries the voices of those who still call out to be heard. To believe in the sea is to believe in balance, a rhythm as old as the moon. For every ship that falls, another is guided safely home. For every voice that fades, another is lifted by the wind. When people vanish, perhaps it is not into nothingness, but into that balance, the place where sound becomes silence and silence becomes song. That is the secret every sailor knows and every passenger forgets. The ocean is alive, and it listens. Soon, even the greatest ship in history would learn that truth the hard way. Long before neon decks and luxury towers, the world had already built its floating kingdom. The year was 1912, the age of invention, confidence, and empire. From the shipyards of Belfast rose the RMS Titanic. She was called the Ship of Dreams, a name whispered with awe and pride. 11 decks tall, her engines the size of cathedrals, her corridors gleaming with mahogany and gold. She was not just a vessel, she was a promise. For the wealthy, she was paradise. Dining rooms glittering beneath crystal chandeliers, servants moving like shadows, orchestras filling the air with waltz and hope. For the working families below, she was salvation, a one-way passage to a new life in America. On the night of April 10th, 1912, the Titanic slipped into the Atlantic, lights blazing like a second city. Newspapers called her unsinkable, a word that felt like a spell cast against nature itself. But the sea has never obeyed words. Beneath those calm, dark waves, it waited, patient, ancient, and unmoved by human pride. Every journey into the unknown begins with confidence and ends with revelation. The Titanic's first days at sea were perfect, a world of music, laughter, and steady rhythm. The sea was calm, the air clear, the future golden. But on the 14th of April, as the ship entered the North Atlantic's icy corridors, the temperature fell without warning. The stars glittered like shards of glass. The wireless room hummed with messages, ice warnings one after another, each acknowledged, then set aside. Just before midnight, lookouts spotted a shadow ahead, an iceberg rising from the darkness like a wall of the world itself. The order was shouted, the wheel turned, the engines reversed. But the ocean had already decided. Metal met ice in a scream that no human hand could silence. Water surged through her lower decks, slow at first, then unstoppable. Within hours, the unsinkable ship began to bow before her oldest master. In that frozen silence, stars and screams mingled together. Some prayed, some sang, some stared at the endless horizon, where rescue would never come. At 2:20 in the morning, the Titanic slipped beneath the Atlantic, and the ocean closed its hands. When dawn broke, the sea was calm again, glassy, silent, filled only with fragments of what had been: deck chairs, teacups, torn life jackets, the debris of human certainty. 1,500 souls were gone, carried into legend. Those who survived said the sound of the sinking haunted them forever, a great sigh as the sea accepted its gift. The world called it tragedy. Sailors called it balance. For in that single night, the ocean reminded humanity of something it had forgotten, that progress without humility invites correction. Every ship since has sailed in Titanic's shadow, whether they admit it or not. Even the modern giants, gleaming with glass and luxury, carry her ghost within their hulls. She was meant to be the triumph of man over nature. Instead, she became the proof that nature cannot be possessed. And somewhere, beneath 2 miles of cold water, her lights still flicker in dreams, a warning written in salt and steel. For years after the Titanic sank, the world pretended to learn. Laws changed. Ships carried more lifeboats. Radio watches never slept. Yet the sea's lessons are rarely finished, and humankind forgets faster than water forgives. By mid-century, a new age of ocean travel began. Steel hulls thicker, engines stronger, confidence reborn. The sea seemed conquered again, or so people liked to believe. But in the summer of 1947, the ocean whispered once more. A cargo ship named the SS Ourang Medan drifted somewhere between Sumatra and the Strait of Malacca, broadcasting an SOS that froze every ear that heard it. The message came through broken static. All officers dead. Entire crew dead. I die. Then silence. No coordinates, no signal, just the echo of human panic, swallowed by static and salt. Nearby vessels began searching, guided only by instinct and dread. When they found the Ourang Medan, she floated calmly beneath a blazing sun, unscarred, unmoving, surrounded by water so still it looked like glass. Her decks told another story. The first boarding party climbed the side expecting survivors, but what they found belonged to nightmare. Every crew member lay dead, their bodies frozen mid-motion, mouths open, eyes wide as if staring at something beyond sight. Some were collapsed near radios, others sprawled on the bridge or clutching ropes. Even the ship's dog was dead, teeth bared in silent warning. There were no signs of struggle or violence, only terror. The air was thick with something unseen. No smoke, no fire, yet a sense of heat and heaviness pressed against every breath. The steel hull creaked faintly, as though the ship itself were holding in a secret. When the rescuers entered the lower decks, they reported feeling an intense chill despite the tropical sun. Instruments malfunctioned, compasses spun, and somewhere in the bowels of the ship they heard a faint metallic sound, a single knock echoing like a heartbeat. No one dared stay long. The sea had gone perfectly quiet, as if waiting for them to leave. They gathered the logbook and prepared to tow the vessel, but the ocean had other plans. As the rescue crew fastened lines to the Ourang Medan, smoke began to rise from her cargo hold. No spark, no explosion, just a hiss, a whisper, then a roar. Within minutes, flames burst through her deck, brilliant and silent, burning without wind. The rescuers cut their lines and pulled away, watching helplessly as the ghost ship became a furnace upon the water. A final blast tore through the hull, scattering debris across the waves. Then she was gone. No wreckage was ever found. No one could say what had burned so fiercely or what had killed her crew before the fire began. Theories swirled. Chemical leaks, carbon monoxide, secret cargo, even something beyond explanation. But the truth stayed where it always does, beneath the surface. To this day, sailors who cross the Strait of Malacca speak of strange fogs and sudden radio static. Some claim to see lights gliding across the water at night, too steady to be stars, too low to be ships. They say the Ourang Medan still drifts out there, crew eternal, message repeating, I die. In the months that followed, stories of the Ourang Medan spread across every port. Sailors whispered of her ghostly message, of eyes that saw something no mortal should. The newspapers tried to make sense of it, but the truth kept shifting like the tide. Some said the ship had carried a secret chemical cargo, liquid cyanide or nitroglycerin, leaking into the air until it poisoned everyone aboard. Others swore it had been part of a covert operation, carrying nerve gas left over from the war, hidden beneath false manifests. A few believed something stranger still, that the crew had opened a container meant never to be opened, releasing a force older than the sea itself. But no evidence survived the fire, no documents, no cargo lists, not even the ship's registration. Some investigators claimed the Ourang Medan never existed at all, a phantom born from static and fear. And yet, too many records mention her name. Too many sailors recall the call for help. I die. The sea is filled with stories that begin with truth and end with mystery. This one carried both from the very first word. Decades later, researchers still argue over the Ourang Medan. Her location remains unmarked on maps, her crew unburied, her story unresolved. Some maritime historians call her a cautionary tale, a parable of human error. Others believe she was erased deliberately, her existence scrubbed from registries, because her fate held secrets too dangerous to surface. But perhaps her message was never about cargo or code. Perhaps it was about connection, the thin, trembling line that binds every life at sea. Those who heard her distress call said the voice was weak, distant, almost childlike. A man speaking from the edge of death, yet calm, as if he had already accepted what the sea demanded. Ships still send and receive distress signals across those waters today. Every now and then, a faint pattern of static echoes through the radio bands, brief, indecipherable, but familiar. Old sailors pause when they hear it. They don't record it. They just listen. The ocean does not forget. Every sound ever made above it still travels beneath. Every scream, every prayer, every final heartbeat turned into vibration and folded into the deep. The Ourang Medan became more than a ghost ship. She became a mirror held up to all who travel the sea, a reminder that we are guests upon something infinite and indifferent. Some believe that ships like hers never truly sink, that in the coldest hours, when fog drapes the water and the horizon vanishes, echoes of lost vessels rise again. Engines humming, lights flickering, calling out to no one. The ocean keeps them because it cannot destroy what is already surrendered. Perhaps that is what draws us back, this strange devotion to something that has taken so much from us. We build new ships, stronger ships, brighter ships, yet every voyage still begins with a whisper to the deep. Let me return. every story of the sea, from the vanished to the found, carries the same shape: a beginning of light, a middle of silence, and an ending swallowed by distance. Amy Lynn Bradley, Marion Carver, Rebecca Corium, and the nameless crew of the Ourang Medan, separated by oceans and decades, yet all drawn into the same vast stillness. It is easy to call them accidents, coincidences, tragedies, but for those who live close to the ocean, the word pattern comes to mind more often than chance. Ships vanish where others have vanished before. Currents cross like invisible roads. Radio signals fade in the same coordinates year after year. It is as though the sea keeps certain places for itself, small corners where reality bends and time forgets to count. Some captains speak of silent zones, where compasses spin and air feels heavy, as if filled with invisible charge. Those who enter them return changed, or not at all. Science calls it magnetism, geography, coincidence, but sailors still murmur prayers when crossing them, because they know when the sea wants to keep something, it does not ask. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet, yet we have explored less than 10. We send machines to the stars, but fear to dive too deep into our own blue abyss. Pressure builds there that could crush steel. Darkness reigns absolute. The deepest trenches hold creatures that glow like lanterns, living embers adrift in eternal night. Down there, sound travels 4 times faster than in air. Every whisper becomes a shout, every secret amplified into eternity. Perhaps that is why the missing cannot be found, not because they are gone, but because they have joined the song beneath. For centuries, sailors have described the ocean as alive, breathing, shifting, dreaming. Maybe it remembers more clearly than we do. Every lost ship, every vanished soul becomes another note in its endless hymn. To listen deeply enough is to risk madness, for the song of the sea is not meant for human ears. It is meant for memory. There is a saying among old mariners, what the ocean takes, it keeps. But those words were never meant as warning. They were meant as truth. The sea does not steal. It restores balance. Every ship that sinks returns its iron to the earth. Every sailor lost becomes part of the current. When a person vanishes from a cruise deck in perfect weather, or when an entire crew lies frozen in fear, the sea absorbs them into its rhythm. It turns their stories into tide and temperature, sound and salt. That is why the water never stops moving. It is the pulse of every life it has ever touched. The surface sparkles for the living, but below lies the true ocean, the silent one, where time folds and memories drift like ghosts. We tell these stories not to solve them, but to remember that the sea remembers too. Despite all the losses, despite the warnings carved into legend, we continue to go back. Perhaps it is curiosity, perhaps defiance. There is something in the human spirit that cannot resist the horizon. We look at the ocean and see not danger, but invitation, a mirror that reflects both our greatness and our fragility. From the first wooden rafts to the mighty liners, we have called the sea a pathway to the future. Yet the deeper truth is simpler. It has always been a pathway home. Each ship that leaves the harbor carries the same quiet hope that it will return unchanged, but the sea changes everything it touches. It erases the hard edges of arrogance, polishes steel into ghostlight, and replaces certainty with awe. The ocean is not cruel, only honest. It does not destroy out of anger, but out of balance. It reminds us that even in our grandest creations, we remain temporary. And so, voyage after voyage, we return, knowing it will happen again. More than a century after her fall, the Titanic still lies 2 miles beneath the Atlantic, her bones preserved in silence. Cameras have touched her decks, lights have wandered through her halls, yet even now she feels alive. Divers say her corridors breathe, the rust sways like seaweed, the railings hum faintly in the currents. It is said that sound carries differently there, that you can almost hear voices if you listen too long. What began as a monument to progress has become a cathedral of humility. Her story is not of failure, but of remembering, a reminder that wonder must always walk beside respect. Every ship built since carries her memory in steel and superstition. Engineers whisper her name when testing new designs, and passengers feel a strange chill when their vessels cross the same latitude. The Titanic's ghost is not tragic. It is patient, waiting for us to finally understand that the ocean never truly lost her. It simply keeps her where she belongs. Across the world, the ocean floor is littered with stories, a graveyard without tombstones. From Viking longships to modern submarines, each wreck lies like an unfinished sentence. Some rest in peace, claimed by coral and time. Others seem restless. Their lights flicker in deep sea footage, their shapes move where no current should. In the dark pressure of the abyss, decay is slow. Wood lasts centuries. Bones turn to pearl. The sea holds these relics, not as evidence, but as memory. When you look out from a ship at night and see nothing but water, remember what lies below. Layers of history, of courage and error, of people who once believed they would never be forgotten. And perhaps they aren't, for every whisper of the waves above is made from them, the missing, the fearless, the lost. The ocean doesn't bury the dead, it sings them. Today, the world sails with satellites and sonar. Every ship's path is tracked by invisible eyes, every voyage mapped down to the smallest wave. And yet, people still vanish. The illusion of safety has grown stronger, but the ocean has not changed. Beneath the shining decks and digital precision, the same currents move, ancient, untamed, waiting. Cruise lines sell perfection. Their brochures gleam with turquoise water and smiling faces, but the ocean remains the same, endless, unpredictable spirit it has always been. When a person disappears from a modern liner, the news fades quickly, a headline for a day, then silence. The families wait, the authorities cite international law, and the sea continues its slow breathing, indifferent and eternal. Technology has made us faster, louder, brighter, but it has not made us invincible. The ocean still decides when to listen, and when to answer. Every ship afloat today carries centuries of memory beneath its hull, voices layered one atop another, whispering to the living as they pass overhead. There are nights when the ocean feels almost kind. The moonlight smooths its surface like glass, and the air tastes of salt and sleep. It is easy then to forget that beneath lies an empire of darkness. Divers say the sea feels like another world, one that hums softly as if it were dreaming. The deeper you go, the more you understand how small we are. Some return from those depths with eyes wide and quiet, as if they've seen something not meant for daylight. They speak of shapes that move too gracefully to be wreckage, of sounds that resemble words. No camera has ever caught them clearly, yet every diver who goes deep enough feels the same strange certainty that something is there just beyond light's reach, observing. Perhaps it is the ocean's way of remembering us. Perhaps it is something older still. We study the sea with machines, but the sea studies us with patience, and patience always wins. If the ocean is so merciless, why do we keep going back? Why build new ships? Why fill them with laughter? Why stare into the horizon as if expecting an answer? Because the sea, for all its danger, offers what nothing on land can: perspective. It strips away the noise, the illusion of control, and leaves us alone with truth. When you stand at a ship's rail at night and feel the wind rise from 1,000 unseen miles, you understand that this world is alive, and that you are only borrowing time upon it. The ocean humbles us. It takes our arrogance, our fear, our need to be eternal, and returns them as salt and silence. That is why even now we build ships bigger, faster, grander, not to defy the sea, but to feel that moment again, when we remember our place in something vast and unknowable. We don't sail to conquer the ocean. We sail to remember who we are. Every age believes it is the first to be humbled by the ocean, and every age forgets it said the same before. From wooden ships with white sails to engines that whisper in the dark, we have written our names upon the water, and the sea has quietly erased them. Yet the ocean remembers differently. It does not keep faces or names, but feelings: the fear before the fall, the laughter before the storm, the final calm before surrender, all of it stored in movement and tide. Some nights, when the waves fall into perfect rhythm, it feels as though the sea is repeating an old story to itself. The same rise, the same descent, the same lesson retold. It has seen every triumph and tragedy. It has carried the Titanic, swallowed the Ourang Medan, and scattered the ashes of the lost. It does not judge, it simply endures. That is the secret we keep missing. The sea is not here for us. We are here for it. Listen long enough to the sea and you begin to hear words that are not words, a language without sound or shape. The ancients said it spoke to those willing to listen, to those who came without arrogance. Its language is patience. Its dialect is depth. Every wave is a sentence, every current a thought carried for centuries. Scientists call these patterns rhythm, gravity, pressure. Sailors call them memory. In every myth, The sea holds both life and death. It feeds, yet it consumes. It nurtures, yet it tests. To understand it is to understand balance, that creation and destruction are one continuous tide. The missing passengers, the vanished ships, even the legends, they are all chapters in the same eternal story. And perhaps, when the last ship sails, the sea will close the book, not in anger, but in completion. The ocean has no memory of individuals, yet it remembers us all. Every voyage, every footprint on a deck, every tear shed against the wind becomes part of its story. We call it mystery, but the sea would call it truth. We name it tragedy, but the sea would call it balance. For all our power, we still measure ourselves against its edge, and when we lose, it does not celebrate. It merely carries us home. Those who have stood on its deck at dawn know the feeling, that moment when the sun touches the horizon and turns the water to gold. For a heartbeat, everything makes sense. The sea does not demand worship, only respect, and those who give it are never truly lost. Perhaps that is why we return, generation after generation, to be reminded that mystery is not something to fear, but something to belong to. The ocean is older than language, older than thought. It has carried every dream, every fear, every whisper humanity has ever set adrift. When ships vanish, when names fade, the sea keeps them, not as ghosts, but as echoes of what it means to be alive. It teaches in silence. It listens without judgment. And though it never answers, it always replies. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all, that something so vast and indifferent can still feel sacred. So tonight, as the waves breathe against distant shores, remember those who never returned. The passengers, the sailors, the dreamers who chased the horizon and found eternity instead. They are still out there, in the rhythm of the tides, in the pulse of the deep, in the hush between heartbeats. The sea does not forget, it only waits. Thank you for sailing with me through the mysteries of the deep. If this story stirred something in you, subscribe to Sleepy Mysteries and join me, Regina Sage Monroe, as we journey again into the hidden corners of the past, where truth and wonder share the same tide. Until next time, travel gently, listen softly, and remember, the ocean remembers you.
Each tide that touches shore remembers the pain. Love never lost, just born again. Carried through silence, gentle and deep. The sea holds the dreams we couldn't keep. No voice is lost to the deep below. The heart returns where the waters flow. Yes, the ocean remembers all that we are. Every fading echo becomes a star. Though the night grows silent, love sails on, and the ocean remembers. We live on. We live on. The sea